Welcome back to Mindset Mastery with Mindset Mary. Today, we are diving into the world of Nick Arapkiles. Through his Just Grow podcast, Nick empowers impact driven entrepreneurs to thrive both internally and externally using the Woo+Do formula so that they can be, do, and have everything that their hearts desires. Today is going to be an amazing conversation. So, Nick, thank you for taking the time and coming on to the show. How are you?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mary. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. So Nick, I saw a lot of your social media posts and I've listened to some of your content on your Just Grow podcast. Can
Wow.
you tell me a little bit about how did Nick come about to creating this life for himself? How did it begin?
Yeah, it's a wild journey. I've been in entrepreneurship for over 10 years now. Most of it was in a marketing aspect. I did that for quite some time and learned a lot of great skills that I developed and got to meet a lot of cool people and it afforded me a lifestyle that I definitely dreamed about at one point in my life. And then I started working with some pretty big brands and some different agencies, and it was really cool. But I could also just tell that I always was gravitated towards like the personal development side. So I think something in my heart always told me that I was meant to do something along those lines. And I was going through a particularly challenging time in my life of adjusting traumas, dealing with a breakup, and just navigating this new venture and career where I was going. So I took some space for myself. I went to Utah by myself for a week, just to kind of collect myself, get out in nature and disconnect and reconnect, really. And then I was on top of Zion Mountain. I was having a conversation with this dude. He was a really interesting guy. He's an optometrist from South Africa, and he said something to me, and he said that you ask really good questions. And I don't know, I just love conversations, and like when he said that to me, that just kind of sparked it. I was like, I think I'm meant to start a podcast. And so I sat with that for a moment, and then I just made the decision right top of that mountain. And then I got back to Arizona shortly after that, and I was like, I want to do this unique. I want to do this different. So I decided to throw an event, which I'd never really done before, but my network was growing pretty rapidly at that point, and I was like, it's my birthday coming up. So I was like, what if I threw like a birthday podcast launch party? So we did it, and I didn't even know if anyone would show up or anything, but a bunch of people showed up, and it was like one of the best nights of my life. And then everyone was asking when the next one was, and then we threw another one, and then we threw another one, and they just kept getting bigger. The biggest one we had was like 200, over 200 people, and then started realizing it was like really becoming a thing from that point on. So then we started kind of brainstorming, and we launched a business off of that, and that's where like the kind of the coaching aspect came into place. And that was about like a year and a half ago. So yeah, that's kind of like the inception story, if you will.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Because a lot of people, they tend to be sort of in the analysis paralysis aspect of things where they want to do something, but they don't know what it is and they're trying to figure it out and they don't end up doing anything because they don't have it all figured out. And it kind of sounds like you had an idea or a breakthrough
Yeah.
and you just went ahead and like you just went for it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get me wrong. Like I've definitely been the paralysis by analysis guy a lot of my life in certain aspects. But I was actually just on a podcast earlier today, and one thing I have this sheet in my closet as I'm getting ready every day, and I don't look at it every day, but for whatever reason, I think it was yesterday and today I looked at it, and I wrote this list down. It's like a list of 10 things. And I wrote it down when I just, momentum was strong at one point in my life and things were going really well. And for whatever reason in my mind, I was like, I want to like write down the rules that have gotten me to a really good place so that like I know when I inevitably fall off, I can look back at this and be like, oh, here's all the things. And so one of the things that I think is really important and like how that ties into the story that I just shared is one of the things I call it is getting the monkeys off your back.
Mhm.
And so what that really means is like look at it like this. So we got a water bottle right here. If I hold it out like this, it's not that heavy. If I hold it out for 10 minutes, it starts getting a little bit more heavy. If I hold it out for a day, a week, a month, a year, like
Mhm.
my shoulder's killing me, right? And so if there's things that you have not addressed, if there's things that are like kind of like you know you need to handle, but you don't, I feel like that can weigh very heavy on you. And so it was interesting within that journey of my life, like I had let go of a lot of stuff that I've been holding on to for a long time. I started having some really tough conversations and getting a lot of things off my chest that I've been holding on to for a long time. And I think it's quite serendipitous that I was releasing all that. And then all of a sudden, like what I like to call is like cleared out all that interference. And then I was able to get those clear downloads. And so when I had that idea to start the podcast, it was a different feeling than just like, oh, I want to start a business. It was like I felt God was talking to me and he like placed this in my heart and it was a lot deeper and I could hear it more now that everything was cleared out a bit more. So therefore I could take action on it. And I just felt pulled to it rather than just being like, oh, I have this idea, I need to go do it. It was more just like this felt right. And so I did it. And like I said, like it was one of the best nights of my life. And then people seemed to enjoy it. So I was like, all right, let's run with it.
Mhm. It sounds like it really came from the idea came from really a state of presence and being,
Yeah.
you know? Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And how amazing is it when people can pursue things that they truly believe in and feel committed to, beyond just like having a job or being able to financially support yourself, where you actually feel called to do something,
Uh,
and to
Amen.
become something.
Yeah, it's powerful. It's powerful. And I think that really comes also like, clearing the interference and doing that whole thing that I just shared. But I think it's also really important to like really understand yourself. I heard a quote recently that said that self-success is self-understanding or self-growth is self-understanding. So the more that you can understand yourself, the more that you can understand why you're gravitated to certain things and why you're not gravitated to other things. Um, and I just, at that point in my life, I'd really started understanding myself a lot more. I understood my values, what I really like really appreciate. Like some of my highest values are growth, our experience, our relationships, our connection and communication. And so like when I finally like really got a good handle on that, and then I look at, okay, you're throwing podcast events, talking about growth, bringing people together, working on your communication skills. Oh, no, duh. I wonder why you're drawn towards this, right?
Yeah, it's true. And like so much of why there's so much resistance in people's lives is because there's an alignment of our values, right? We're doing things that we don't feel in alignment with. So we're
Yeah.
working so hard to force things to fit. Whereas if we were to just release the things that just aren't serving us or serving our highest good, we can create space to bring in the things that are meant for us.
Right. Like, do you have space for a miracle?
Mm, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, wait, there's this, I saw this, there's like a meme, and it was this guy who's juggling apples. I have to go back and find this one because I talk about it here and there.
Mhm.
This guy like juggling apples, but what he's also doing is he's taking a bite out of the apples as he's juggling them. So he's taking like little bites out of the apple. And if you look at it, you're like, okay, this guy, he's trying to eat and feed himself. And he's just taking these little bites out of a ton of apples. I think he was juggling like a crazy amount, like 12 apples. Or he could just like put it all down and he could just grab one apple and eat it and it would do the same thing. And so like,
Mhm.
yeah, I guess I don't even know why I necessarily brought that up, but like when you start getting more clear on what you want and you go deep rather than wide, because I think so many people are just trying to, oh, that's why I brought it up. People are trying to like do so many different things and just handle like I gotta do everything. I can't miss out on anything. I have to stay up on social media. I have to look at all the posts. I have to do all that. And then you get like drawn into that and addicted to that. But it's like if you just kind of sat with yourself a little bit more and like understood yourself a little bit more and just realized like what really lights you up, what doesn't. Like I've realized too, like one of my friends, her name's Mackenzie England. Shout out Mackenzie. She's amazing. And she's really opened my eyes to understanding your love languages, not for to communicate that to a partner, but so that you can know them, so that you can know what to give yourself.
Mhm.
And so it was interesting because I'm going through her like boot camp thing right now. It's really good. And I went and back and redid my love languages to find out which they are, which I always was fully under the impression that it was words of affirmation and physical touch, which it is, but actually my top one is quality time. And so I know for me, I certainly still can be that person that is the juggling apple guy because I'm
Yeah.
like, ah, let's keep going, keep doing it. Let's go. Let's connect with more people. Let's post more content, all those things. But even like this week, I've just been taking more time throughout the day to just be like, all right, let's chill. Let's
Hmm.
sit, let's be, and let's spend some quality time with myself because that's showing myself love. So all that to be said is like I have notoriously been the one to go on solo trips and do my thing because I really enjoy my quality time. I love being around other people for sure, but when you understand yourself and you understand your love languages, you know how to give that to yourself. And yeah, all that was kind of stemmed off because one of my mentors, Aaron Velke, shout out Aaron, um, he said that quote to me. He's like, "Do you have space for a miracle?" And if we're busy just juggling the apples and taking little bites, like how do we have time for when like God's like, "Hey, I have this amazing, lush, beautiful apple for you to just eat the whole thing, but you're too busy juggling apples, taking little bites."
Mm. So good. So good.
Yeah.
It's so true. And, and when people go wide, sometimes, or in my experience with some people that I've coached, it's like they're busy doing busy work because they're afraid to slow down and really ask themselves the real questions, right? And sometimes they have the answers to those real questions, but the busy work prevents them from taking action on the things they know they should start doing or the things that they know that they need to stop doing. Like, getting out of that relationship, changing that career. It's like, you're not where you need to be, but you'd rather just stay where you are than to face the unknown.
The unknown is scary. The
It,
unknown is dark. It's what's in there, what's in the unknown. Uh, it is. Uh, there's definitely certain aspects in my life that I avoided the unknown for the longest time. And so I do my best to like really have compassion for everybody and knowing everyone is on their own journey and they're gonna navigate their life the way it's meant to for them. Um, but I'd say another big thing that's like been very transformative in my life is the whole concept of choosing courage. Like
yes.
I don't think fear really goes away. Like I think we get more comfortable in certain situations, but there's always going to be another level, another devil. Uh, but when you can really face those things that you've been scared of, it's freeing.
Yeah.
Again, just kind of come back to the water ball thing. Like once you like kind of let go of those things, like for me, like last year was really a pivotal year for me because of the fact that like I always kind of had this I was always nervous. I don't always nervous, but I had certain aspects of social anxiety. But I really enjoy like going out and meeting new people. I just couldn't really find the right way I wanted to do it. But last year, I kind of just made a declaration to myself and said like I want to handle this. And so what I did is I just started going out by myself. I don't really drink. So went out by myself and I also picked up swing dancing too. So it was kind of like a different aspect of going out and gave me like an activity instead of just going out and having to like force conversations. Um, but that was something I was like scared of for a good portion of my life. And I just like said, hey, I want to make sure that I'm at least going out and I'm approaching a handful of people a week and at least do that for like a 90-day stretch. And I can't tell you how good that felt, how great that felt when I finally just like tackled that, or like really, conquered that monster. Like I remember at the end of 90 days, I hit it. I every single week without fail, I did it. And it was just like, wow, I like tackled that big old courage monster that had been holding me down for quite some time. And so there's always going to be aspects of that, no matter if it's like you just within your in your own personal life, or maybe it's something within a relationship or a conversation you need to have. But I just excuse me. I feel like that's where like freedom is. And until you really like attack that kind of stuff, uh I think it can hold you down a lot. At least that's been my experience.
Oh, absolutely. I think, until you expose it, you can't remove its hold on you until you really expose it and say, like, what am I really so scared about? Like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen if you go out and you talk to a stranger or you talk I think we really make the problem so much bigger than it is in our heads. And I think like for introverts, I think we tend to also overthink a lot
Yep,
and really magnify the issue. Whereas if you just go and do it and see what happens, you'll realize, like, oh, wow, why did I worry about this so much?
absolutely. It's like that's the craziest thing is like at least for me, I build stuff up in my head, just like what you were saying.
Mm.
And once you finally like tackle that, you're like,
Hmm.
that's what I've been scared of
That's
this whole
it?
time.
Why did I do that? It's true. It's true. I've had similar stories where it's like, oh wow, making a video, like something I tend to struggle with, like a video reel, like, oh, I don't want to put myself out there. I don't want to expose myself. And it's like sometimes it's just a reframing, right? Like you're looking at it from an angle that doesn't serve you. And if you were to look at it from a different angle, like, yeah, but what if someone out there actually needed to hear what you had to say? You know, what if you actually changed someone's life? What if? So it's like sometimes we don't ask ourselves the opposite. Like, what's the fear? And then what's the opposite of that fear? And what if that were to happen? How would life change or be different? So one thing I want to ask you is about around self-awareness, because it sounds like you have a lot of self-reflection and self-awareness of yourself. So I guess I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on like, do you feel like people tend to lack the self-awareness that they need to realize you've got those monkeys on your back, like things are getting heavier, but you've gotten so used to it that you just don't feel it anymore? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's interesting how I don't talk about this a lot, but something that kind of popped up as you were asking that question. I think suppressed memories are a real thing.
Mm.
Like if you just keep on suppressing them for long enough, like they will just get buried down. And then you really have no idea on what's going on. Like, why am I feeling this way when you have all these suppressed emotions, but you have no awareness on what is going on? And the less conscious you are, like it's like you don't have a chance. And so like and that was the case for me for sure. I had suppressed some memories from my childhood for a really long time. And then I'll just to share my journey, but like psychedelics have been a huge factor in my journey. And I probably would have suppressed, like fully suppressed these emotions and not really known what they were, where they came from, unless I did psychedelics, which brought them to the surface, which was a huge like catalyst to my journey. And I've continued to use them uh, pretty sparingly, especially as of late. Um, but that really opened up my awareness and helped me become more aware just as a whole to kind of like break me open. And
Mhm.
then on the other side of things is just kind of more of the maintenance, if you will. So I have some pretty strong daily non-negotiables. It can always ebb and flow. Sometimes I'm a little bit more structured. Again, kind of our messaging is the woo and the do. So it's finding that balance within like the internal work as well as like the external work. And sometimes you're a little bit more in flow, sometimes you're a little bit more structured. Right now, I'm a little bit more in flow, but we do have like tools that we have in our coaching program where we have like you can cross things off on an app and stuff. And we have called a vibrational KPI sheet that turns red and green. It's pretty cool stuff that we've been building. But like just simple things that I've deemed simple now. They weren't simple when I started, but daily meditation, daily breath work. Like I have some guided meditations, guided visualizations that I've created for myself and clients and anybody that asks for them, really, that I use and that we all use, so that like it can just be something like whether they're anywhere from like 9 minutes, sometimes some of them are like 20 minutes, but just like doing something that keeps me just present. And I think it's really important to remember that it's not about doing meditation. It's not about being good at meditation. Really, the best way, and I think it's really important to simplify things. As professionals, I heard this quote: pros make complex things simple, amateurs make simple things complex. So the more simple that we can make things, I think the more people can actually take action on it. But meditation, in my opinion, is nothing more than just observing your thoughts, awareness.
Mhm.
So the more that you can just be aware of what's going on, I think you're in a better place. And also like something that helped me a lot last year, I developed this, it's a weekly reflection sheet. So after every week, and I store it all in my Google Docs and stuff like that. Again, it's more like the do structure side of things, but it's been really powerful for me because every week I come back and it's just basically questions like, what happened this week? What were the learning lessons? Where could you improve? What did you do really well? Why? And like just diving deep. And I think that practice of doing that on a weekly basis has just like strengthened my awareness muscle to be like always just kind of observing and seeing things for what they are and at a deeper level rather than just be like, oh, that happened.
Mhm.
Again, what we talked about before is like I don't think God make mistakes. So um, things always happen for a reason. So I'm always kind of like doing my best to uncover what are those reasons.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And do you ever go back and like reread what you wrote 6 months ago? Like, do you ever go back and just take a
Yeah.
peek? I tend to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really valuable point that you brought up because I think journaling and reflection and it's like a lot of people miss a big part of it because they're just journaling and it's just like, yes, that's great, but if you don't go back, you're not really reflecting. You're just kind of like writing the story and it just continues to write and write and write. And that's better than not doing anything. But I found it very powerful. Like even what I've done, so again, my one of my love languages is words of affirmation. And so I love speaking. I love communicating. It's one of my highest values is communication and connection. And so sometimes what I do is I record either video journals or just voice journals. I could journal myself. So like especially if they're like moments in time where it's like, like a pivotal event, like a breakup or just like a big it's just a real big growth opportunity, like had a hard conversation. Um, or just big wins too. Like I remember it was like at the end of that 90 days, that the night after I went dancing, where like I was really facing some resistance. I didn't want to go out, but I did it and I had a great time and I just really proved to myself a lot. Like those are the nights that I came home and I'm like, all right, pull out my phone, record like 10, 15 minutes, and then I can go back to those. And I think something that's really powerful about doing it with something that includes your voice is that you can hear and you can feel your energy within that. So I can kind of really get a sense for where I was. And like sometimes, like if I was at a lower frequency that day, I'm kind of talking like this and like this. And I'm like, oh shit, like that's where I was right then and there. And I can see like the times that I was at a really good vibration versus the times that my vibration kind of sunk a little bit. So I think that's really powerful for me, but I'm also much more of like a vocal person as well. But with that also said is this was one of the things that have just stuck with me for the longest time. One of my mentors said that your vocal tonality is the dial to your energy.
Mhm.
So, um, yeah, kind of went off on a little tangent there, but those were some thoughts.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think that kind of leads me to think about when you're talking about, recording yourself. I think that because it is your voice, it really does also go into your subconscious programming, right? Where you're actually able to change the narrative of the things that sometimes we're not seeing, right? Like we're doing things, but then part of us believes that we're not worthy, or part of us believes that we got lucky, or where we don't totally believe in our wins. There's a part of us that we're not aware of that's actually not believing in our wins or believing in our progress. So I think that recording yourself in your voice, talking about your wins with your tonality, I think it reaffirms to your subconscious that this is who I am and this is what I'm capable of achieving.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And that, like, it's interesting because like those are just some like outside practices, but we actually built this other whole thing. I don't know if you know about it, but they're called vision videos. Have you ever heard of this?
Mm-hmm. I think I watched your YouTube video about it
Okay.
this morning.
Yeah, so they've been really powerful and it's really been exciting because just what you said, it is really powerful to have your voice. And so basically the whole context of the vision videos is that it's your highest self coming back to you. Like we have a whole process for building these out and it's some deep work. It's part of our coaching program, but there's basically a few components within it. And the first part is like really building yourself up, like sharing your wins, sharing the challenges that you've overcome. We also have your family and your friends in it so they can really lift you up because sometimes we need other people lifting us up when we don't feel good enough.
Yes.
So that's a component of it. And then we start diving into like your actual vision and we all talk about it as if it's already all happened. And just the fact of like speaking that stuff out with conviction is so powerful. Because yes, it's a whole nother thing to like you get that back and it has the emotional music on top and it just continues to seep deeper and deeper into the subconscious. But we've had clients that have literally just spoken their script and then they just are already creating magic because of the fact that they had that conviction and they had the courage to speak that out and put it out there. And we all know, like, ask and you shall receive.
Yeah, it's true. It's so powerful. And I think the first time I really got exposed to this type of work is like when I was listening to Tony Robbins, and he was saying about how when he was young, he would be doing incantations. So really speaking words out, but speaking them with all the energy, right? And like really having a strong conviction for what he was saying. And then he became the words. And I thought, wow. And he talks about priming your mind. And that's when I was like, wow, okay, there is something to all this work. Let's go and dig a little bit deeper. But it's true, like, it's a way that we can actually alter our current reality. And it's like, how do we bring the future closer to us? And if
Yeah.
you're not visualizing it, if you're not, seeing it, hearing it, believing it, then how are you ever going to get there?
Hmm. Well, that's what I would even piggyback off of that. That was amazing. Thank you. Uh, but it's like getting in the right state, right? And having that good energy. And that's why I truly appreciate like, your setup and everything you got going on over there because it's like it's important to have a good setup, be in a good state. Because I've said this recently. I saw a quote from a good friend of mine. Her name is Christina Joy. Shout out Christina. Um, a quote that she said in one of her reels that just hit hard, and it said, "The person that's having the most fun is the person that's winning." And I'm like, yes, I love that. Um, because the more excited that you can be about life, the more like positive creation, activation type of energy that you're bringing, it just like starts gravitating all these amazing opportunities into your life. And so, yes, the visualization is key and the conviction with that. But like getting in that right state and that right energy first, just like with the incantations that Tony Robbins talks about, like that is 90% of the battle because and that's why with the vision videos we like to like really build up their energy first and like share the wins and share the challenging experiences that they overcame and the gratitude from friends and putting them in a really good state so then we can start focusing on the things that we want to pull into our lives because and I've personally experienced this it's been a crazy journey with the vision videos because it's as me like putting it out as a company is also me like being the guinea pig on these. And I've noticed at times when I start getting stressed out about like, oh, why isn't this showing up in my life yet? Like I manifested this really quick, but why is all this taking for a lot longer? And my energy starts dropping, my state starts dropping, and I'm getting more monotone with my voice. And I'm just like, you can just like my body language is sinking. And when you are in that type of energy, you're at a lower frequency. And when you're at a lower frequency, you're not feeling as good. And when you're like whatever you're feeling, you're attracting more of. So if you're not feeling good and then you're focusing on all these things that you want and you're visualizing them, you're actually detracting them from you because you're actually focusing on the lack of it. And we
Mhm.
don't even realize it, but then it's just continuing to push it further and further and further away. So that's why it's so important. And I'm just such a big advocate of energetics. I mean, we've really injected a lot of that into our coaching program as well. And I've started understanding energetics on a whole nother level. I've got some really amazing mentors in my life, but that is like the cornerstone of everything. Because if your energy isn't right, then it's just an uphill battle from
Mhm.
there, no matter what you're looking to create.
Mhm. Yeah, it's true. Oh my gosh. Yeah, like I am someone who is like highly intuitive
Mm,
and
yeah.
and really sensitive. So I can feel the energies in a room. And when the energies are, not the greatest, it's hard, right? It's hard because I think that, people have the ability to transfer their energy onto others without even knowing it, right? So Ed Milet, you probably know him. He once said something that I'll never forget, and he said like, you cannot transfer onto others things that you are not experiencing yourself, right? So when you're talking about your level of energy and the heightened energy that you've got, and then how that radiates all around you, you are transferring that energy to other people. So when your energy and you're vibrating at a high frequency, you have the ability to make changes to the people that are all around you, right? Just by being who you are, not
Yeah.
doing anything for anyone, just the person that you are being, right? You put out videos and your reels, the way you are being, the words you're saying, that energy does transfer. And that's why
Yeah.
it's super important to always be fully aware of the energy that you're bringing into a room, right? Because it will impact other people, especially empaths.
Yeah, exactly. I'm right there with you. I'm a big ol' empath for sure. I can
Mm.
feel people pretty hard, um, which carries its challenges as well, but it's a beautiful gift. And yeah, and it was wild. I feel like I don't think it was like any just like one moment that I had the realization, but you know, as I've been on this journey, I shifted like at one point, it was like, oh, I want to impact all these people. And that was like my mission. And I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that, but it was also something outside of myself. And so when when I started getting more clear on like really what is my mission, what am I here for, I really just believe that I'm here to shine my light. And it's not to inspire other people, but if that happens, awesome. I can't really, I can't control that. I can't focus on that. And it was interesting when I kind of had that shift, and I'm just, constantly going through my journey and figuring my stuff out and just trying to heal and grow and become the best. That's when like everyone just started gravitating towards me, and I went from, have you ever heard the lighthouse metaphor? The lighthouse versus the lifeboat metaphor?
Yes, I've heard of it, but I can't recollect it. But yes, I have heard of it. Can you share
And
it?
so the way I'm basically explaining it, but essentially like before I was the lifeboat,
Mm.
right? Where I was going out and I was trying to save people,
Oh, wonderful.
right? And that's what I wanted. I wanted to help people. I wanted to like be a coach. I wanted to do all these things. I was going out, but it was like it was going okay. But then once I had kind of that shift where I was just like, all right, now I'm going to be a lighthouse and I'm just going to stand strong and firm and I'm just going to stand here and shine my light. And because of that, all of a sudden, like people started gravitating to me so much more. I felt like I was doing less. And people like, oh, you're so inspiring. You're doing all this. I'm like, I don't
Mhm.
feel like I'm really doing that much, but it's just like what you said, it's who you're being. And
Yeah.
even just coming back to that whole conversation around energy, I made a post I think it was either yesterday or the day before, and it was where I had these two glasses. I think having props in your content is always a good attention grabber. But it was this whole concept about energy and how like magnetic people, they don't like pour their energy out. They don't do drama. They don't talk, they don't throw shade about other people, or they don't buy into that. They just take that energy that would have just been leaking out of them, and then they take that and they just pour it back into themselves. And I think once you really get to that point, it's almost kind of like a shift where you just, I'm not going to engage in stuff that isn't serving me, because ultimately that's diluting my energy, and therefore I'm not going to be experiencing and creating the stuff that I really want and becoming the person I want, as
Mhm.
opposed to if I just took that amazing asset and I pour that back into myself and give myself the space and the time, like the quality time, and just taking more time to myself so that I can really continue to fill my cup.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And it's like if you want to be magnetic, well, what do magnets do? They attract,
Yeah.
right? You want to be able to attract the people that you are meant to attract. You're also meant to deflect people that who aren't meant to be on your path, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a whole another conversation of people that are not meant to be on your path. I feel like there's people that are meant to be on your path for a little while, and then it fades out and you guys go in different directions. And I think that's
Okay.
not attaching to people, not attaching to anything,
Mhm.
is one of the most powerful gifts that you can give to yourself,
Mhm.
because I feel that I have been that a little bit more of like I do attach to people, and it's something I'm navigating more and more. And the more that I really embody the open to everything, attached to nothing type of mentality, the more I'm in my power. But yeah, just looking at people that come into your life as a reason and a season and a lesson and a blessing, and realizing that I think that most things in this world have an expiration date. And a lot of times it comes sooner than you think. At least
Mhm.
that's kind of been my experience. And again, the less that I hold on to that, like feeling like, oh, this person was a really good friend and they have to be my best friend for my entire life. The more I let go of that, and just appreciate everything that comes in my life, no matter if it's for a minute or an hour or a day or a year or a decade or anything in between.
Mhm. Yeah, I always try to remember to like trade in my expectations, especially of other people, trade it in for just appreciation, that they're here for this time, what they give and who they're being and how they support me, and not always have that. Like, because I found like before doing a lot of my inner work, I had so many expectations that I would place on other people, and I would only get disappointed time and time again.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, wow, okay, how can I really just try to detach and just appreciate that friend that came and maybe left from my life, like appreciate all the relationships in my life and really look at myself and say, when I have an expectation of someone, what is it that I'm actually not giving myself that I'm needing to get from someone else? you know
Mhm.
and it's really turn that question inward. What expectations am I not meeting? What's not being met right now? And how can I give that expectation to myself by doing something different, being something different? Like there is something there that's missing, but the more I try to find someone else that can come in and fill that void, the more I keep myself vulnerable, right, and not in control of my life or my emotions. So I'll ask you that question. What have you experienced in your life where you felt like you weren't not meeting your own needs?
Yeah, I love that you brought that up. I think that's such a powerful point. And there's a quote, what's his name? Peter Crone. Do you know him? You know him?
Yes, I do.
His work's incredible.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's something along the lines of people, places, and experiences will come into your life to show you where you're not free yet.
Hmm. This is so true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess the best way I can answer your question is like, yeah, I think specifically every relationship and specifically all my intimate relationships, they've been huge pieces of my growth because they always come in and they show me like where I'm not free. Yeah. Like, and they show you, and also, but at the same time, like you wouldn't have attracted those people in if like you didn't have that within yourself. Like they came into your life to show you that you already have that. So, yeah, I've had multiple experiences in different ways. Like some people came into my life to show me that I have like a deeper love within myself. Some people show me that I have amazing potential and like this business success that I see in other people and they had that and like the only reason they came into my life is to show and prove to me that I already have that within myself. Otherwise, I wouldn't have attracted those people into my life. And so I think when you can look at life, it's not always easy. And that's even been kind of like one of the places that I have historically held on tight is like when relationships transition into the next phase of and not us being together anymore. I have historically been one to like hold on tight and being like, oh, I needed that person. But again, I've had some amazing coaches that have shed light in me. Like they're literally the only reason those people came into your life to show you that you don't need them, that you already have that within yourself. You wouldn't have attracted them into your life if you didn't have that within yourself.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I love that. And I think also sometimes you can attract relationships into your life because of your attachment styles or inner
Yeah.
child wounds, like sometimes you attract the relationship of like you're trying to find what you got when you were a child from, say, your parents, and sometimes you attract a relationship where you try to find what you didn't get and try to find that in that relationship because you didn't get it as a child, right?
Uh,
So we tend to also attract, what we're familiar with or what's missing. But also I love the concept of like people coming into your life to show you already have it. You don't need them. You already have it. Yeah. And I think ultimately when you have that ideal relationship, that is the ultimate freedom, right? Like that is the ultimate freedom where you feel like you are with someone, but at the same time, you are 100% free. And that's not easy. That takes a
yeah.
specific relationship.
Yeah, it's quite a dance, but I think, I've questioned it at times of like, why have I not found that person yet? And the answer that keeps coming back to it is because I haven't like really shown and felt that 100% love for myself. Because if at any point we're like, if there's anything outside of us that we're searching for to make us whole, that's when you're in a very vulnerable spot. Because then that can be ripped away from you at any point, and then you're back to square one, if not even further. Because now you're like, you tasted it and now you're missing it. And it's like they talk, I think they talk about that, how um that creates so much more, like if you never had something versus having it and then taking it away, it's I don't know how to explain it exactly, but it hurts more essentially, as if you just didn't have it, as opposed to like if you just got a taste and then it ripped away from you. So all that to be said is that I just truly believe, and it's funny. I had a good conversation with my friend Ryan Samita. He's an amazing human being. Shout out Ryan. But we had a conversation, and I remember him saying, he's like, it's almost kind of, and it's so annoying yet so freeing to know that all the answers are within. Like I am the problem and I am the solution. Always.
But isn't that so empowering to know?
Exactly. It's freeing. Like
Yeah.
when you're like, damn, like if I just take responsibility and I level up, I can be, do, and have anything and everything that I want.
Yeah. Yeah. I also think like when people are seeking out relationships, it's like if they can believe that what's meant for them is also like, what you seek is seeking you. Like what's
Mm.
meant for you is also you're on your way to it, but it's also on its way to you. And that's a shift, right? Where you don't feel like you're trying to find someone. It's like you're just trying to get on the right path to come together at a certain point, but that person is out there. And the more someone can embody and believe the fact that that person is actually taking steps towards them, they will be more inclined to start taking steps towards that other person as well. But most people always tend to think like, I can't find anyone. I'm looking, they're always like, oh, I can't, and it's like, yeah, but what if they're doing the same thing? And if you stop, they'll stop. Or if you stop, they're never going to find you. Right.
Powerful.
And
Yeah.
it's about the shift, right? And like making the shift, looking at something from a different angle. If you can look at something from a different angle, you will have a shift in perspective.
And I think that's why questions are so powerful. I've just been such an advocate of questions. I mean, whenever I started my podcast, I was just like always very curious, and I love I love just having great conversations and hearing what people have to say to my questions. But even as of late, I've taken that up tenfold because one, I believe that we can access parts of our subconscious that we would never have access to if we didn't ask the right questions.
Hmm.
But at the same note is I don't necessarily ask questions to get answers. I ask questions to gain perspective.
Oh,
And the more perspective that you have, the more awareness that you have. Because like I think I remember someone like asked me or something. We got on the thread of like questions and something like that. And this kind of just came to me, but I was like, especially when you're around like amazing people that have a lot of insight and a lot of wisdom, and you're not asking questions, like I think that's one of the dumbest things you can do. Like this person has a wealth of knowledge that, okay, you could go read a book or you could just ask this person like three, four questions. And it's literally like if we want to put dollar amounts on it, like it could be literally worth thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars because of the what have they've invested into and what they've learned and the experiences that they've had. If you just ask some really, really good questions to really smart people, it can help you just skyrocket quickly. And like I never take that for granted. I remember I was in this really somehow I got into this really impressive room. It's a longer story and I know we don't have a ton of time, so I won't get into it. But one of the guys said, never cease to ask a question when you're in the presence of greatness.
mm.
And even though like I was scared, it was probably like 20, 25 people with this really impressive guy built like $150 million company. And I was really nervous because I'm again more introverted, but I was like, I heard that. I'm like, asking a question. And I just went in and asked the question that something shifted in me that night. And I'd never taken that for granted. Like even a couple weeks ago, I got invited to this really cool dinner where a lot of impressive people were there. And, I easily could have just sat back and like listened, but like as soon as there was a gap in the conversation, I just like took control and like asked the table, like, I want everyone to answer this question. And it was like the question was, what is the best investment that you've ever made into yourself? It just kind of came to me out of nowhere. But then I got all these super impressive people answering that exact question. And then I like, write my notes and take things down and process. And then I apply that to my weekly reflection. And so, yeah, I think questions are amazing.
Awesome. Yeah, questions are great because really what happens when we're asking questions? We get curious,
Yeah.
right? We get curious from other people. And one thing that I learned recently when I came to Arizona from Dr. Jeff Spencer, I don't know if you know Dr. Jeff Spencer.
Oh,
He was the coach for Tiger Woods, Lance Armstrong. He's won many Olympic gold medals and helped others win their Olympic gold medals. He's amazing. And one thing that he told me that resonated was receptivity, the
mm.
ability to be receptive, because sometimes someone will say something and it just won't land, right? And then that person can tell you the same thing 2 years later,
Oh,
but it landed in a way that it never did 2 years prior because you were in a state of receptivity. So that those downloads that other people, the energy that other people are bringing into you, you actually start to be able to process them and feel them and understand them. And I think that, when you can be a curious person, ask great questions, and as you get the answers, you're in that state of receptivity. I think that that's where the gold is. like that's where things really can shift for someone because they were able to get a different perspective on things, on life, on situations. So yeah, Nick, like honestly, this was such an amazing conversation. And I know
That
people
was.
want to know more from you. So if you can tell us where people can go to listen to your podcast, to find you, YouTube, where can people get more of you?
Yeah, for sure. Instagram is probably where I'm the most active. So I have my personal profile as well as the podcast profile, which my personal is NIKOARAPKILES, which is my first and last name. And then official Just Grow is our podcast page. And then if you want to learn more about our coaching company and the vision videos, you can go to justgrowvisions.com. And then if you want to learn about the podcast as well as our live podcast events that we throw in person, they're pretty unique, cool experience. We have another one coming up on March 29th. So if you're in the Scottsdale area or want to fly in, we've had people fly in for our events. You can learn all about that, and we'll have more. We're committed to throwing 8 events this year, so this will be our third coming up, and yeah, we got a big vision for that. We there's some big things coming into place we're really excited for. So I think that kind of covers everything. And then, like I said, if you guys have any interest in any of our guided visualizations, guided breathwork audios, just shoot me a DM on Instagram. Be happy to send that over.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, and I think what I'll also do is I'll link it all up in the description below so that you guys can have access to all the links. Okay, well, Nick, thank you so much for being on the show, and hopefully we get to meet again.
Yes, thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.